8 teams left, no hosts left, no Germany, no Brazil, and no Cristiano and Portugal. But we still have 7 teams at this time of the recording who can still light up the scoreboard, and another team that's just happy to be here. Welcome to Belly Up Sports Summer of Soccer 2026 quarterfinals episode, where we're going to be breaking down the round of 16 action that we just saw get done and the quarterfinals action coming up, where the final 8 teams are here to make a move. So joining me, as always, are my co-hosts, Nick Gable, Belly Up contributor, and Hector Flores, host of the Insert Name FC podcast. Guys, welcome back. It has been a little over a week since we last were on. It has been a wild week, a sad week, an exciting week. Questionable calls, questionable decisions, some politics getting themselves involved. So what are your first thoughts on this last week of soccer, Hector? How you feeling?
Look, round of 16, I think if you're going to talk about the host nations, I think this is where everyone thought the host nation, well, maybe not Canada, but this is where the host nations were going to end up. I think it's a tale of 3 cities when we're talking about the 3 host nations as far as how they finished. I think out of all of them, in losing effort, but at the end of the day, I think only one of them truly got the respect that is well deserved and their flowers. And that is, of course, Mexico. I think they battled it out. They had, say the people that want to make fun of them for not being able to get a goal in when they were going up against a 10-team England. And at the end of the day, man, England was clear on paper just a better team versus Mexico. Hell, just going into this World Cup, there was a lot of concerns about Mexico. There was Mexican fans even doubting that this group was even going to make it past the group stage. There was concerns all around. At the end of the day, you're playing in Mexico, you're playing in Azteca. The pressure is going to be at an all-time high. And these guys exceeded it. They won all 3 of their matches, shutout matches. They were best defensive team going into that last game, having given up a goal going into that last game against England. And, say what you want, but England earned that victory. They put everything out on that game. You can question that Harry Kane penalty, whether or not it was a penalty or not, the whole Brian Gutierrez thing, I get it. But, at the end of the day, Harry Kane stepped up, Jude Bellingham, which I'm not going to lie, I thought it was a replay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a replay, the second goal. I was like, oh, they're re-showing this? And then I realized it was Jude Bellingham just scored a goal like 2 minutes after he scored his opening goal. So, the odds were stacked on Mexico, but still they kept themselves in the fight. And even in the last 10 minutes of the match, you were thinking there was going to be a goal coming out of Mexico. Like, it was just a matter of time. The way they were pressing, the way they were pushing the ball, they had majority of the possession of the game near the final end. So they went down with a fight. Azteca was amazing. The crowd was phenomenal. And this is a guy that doesn't like to praise Mexico as much, but this was a amazing showing. Mexico earned their flowers. They were definitely, when it comes to the host nations, the best team. Group stages, they did what they were supposed to do. They fought throughout every single match. And it goes down to one of my biggest complaints when it comes to a certain national team here. But they accept the fact that they are a CONCACAF nation, that they play CONCACAF football. Yes, is the quality better versus the rest of CONCACAF? Absolutely. There's a reason why Mexico has had so much respect over the years when it comes to competition. They know that whoever goes up again, you have to put up a good showing to beat them. You think of that 2006 World Cup. It took a magical goal to eliminate Mexico. And I know the whole thing about the 5th game, and we've heard it plenty of times. But every single one, it's heartbreaking fashion for Mexico. Like I said, 2006, an amazing banger of a goal in extra time, right? The no era penal that happened in 2014. You can go back. And then the worst one, obviously, of course, was the last World Cup where Mexico didn't even come out of the group stage. And it was just a bad showing for them. But look how they responded. All the concerns that they had about Aguirre, he answered them. Yeah. He answered them. They showcased what they can do in Mexico. And on top of that, man, look, I'm on the board of we need to stop having these multiple country World Cups. Like, let's just have one country host the World Cup, or just a neighboring country host the World Cup. Like, Mexico should be putting a bid for themselves as a nation to host the World Cup. They have the facilities, the infrastructure. I don't care whatever the BS that you're hearing from anybody saying that Mexico is not capable of being a host nation. They hosted the World Cup before. They can do it again by themselves. They have the stadiums. They maybe need to fix a few things, but we didn't see all the great stadiums that Mexico has to offer. We got to see, El Akron in Guadalajara. We saw Azteca, of course. You have to have Azteca. You saw, but we didn't see like the stadium where Tigres plays. We didn't see the stadium that Toluca plays, which, by the way, is a very underrated stadium. Like there's stadiums in Mexico with such history and everything, with all the lore that you would love to have for World Cups. And Mexico is very much capable of being a good host nation. They clearly showed it not only here, but also when they were doing the plans.
Yeah.
They hosted the plans. So like I don't the doubts that they had in Mexico, and this is probably I'm almost done glazing Mexico, so I'm gonna stop.
I was saying I'll let you go, but we still have time. We're still going to talk about Mexico in just a minute as well. So I don't know if you want to keep going.
No, yeah, but at the end of the day, I think Mexico, out of all the 3 host nations that got eliminated, had the better showing. Because I still felt like there was no point in me in this match where I was like, it's over for Mexico. It's over for Mexico. No, because you felt that third goal was going to come in. You felt that third goal was going to come in. And extra time, you don't know what a 10-man England team can keep doing, especially if it goes to the point where it goes to penalties. Like England it's all about momentum when we talk about pens. And it's always there's one team that has done all that they did, what they needed to do to get to penalties, where now it's open for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Versus the team that we could have put this game away. We didn't do it. Now we're here at penalties. And you can see the body language, right? We've seen it plenty of times in this World Cup. The body language of the team that is eager to go into those penalties and a team that's just like, I can't believe we're here. I mean, hell, think of Germany. You had 3 quality players that didn't want to take the pen. And so we had Toss sending it over to where Gabi sent it. So, I mean, like, it's just those things that happen in this sport. And you know what? Props to Todd, by the way, for saying, all right, screw it. I'll take a penalty. I don't do this very often, but I'll shoot it.
Hey, captain the team. Might as well, right?
Yeah.
Or, well, vice captain, technically. But, yeah. But it's okay. So, Nick, how are you feeling after last week? Before we're going to dive back into this host conversation, because I understand Hector's point, and there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had around the hosts. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But Nick, what are you feeling after this last week?
I'm feeling like we need to ban stutter penalties. They never work. And half the time, these guys, so the rule is you're not allowed to stop when you're taking the penalty, and you have to keep your forward momentum going, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, you can't stop your motion fully is the rule.
And I swear, like some of these guys are stopping their motion fully.
Well, their foot is still moving. This is how they get around it. Their foot is still moving one direction or another in a normal quote. There's quotes here, normal motion, and that's how they get around it.
So it's weird because every time there's a stutter penalty, I'm just assuming it's going to be low and slow. And most of the time it is. And if the goalie saves it, one thing happens, and this is just playing the result for the commentators. The commentators say, that was a horrible penalty taken. He should never have done that. And then when they make it, the commentators glaze the player and say, this is how you do it. He must practice day in, day out on the training pitch. And it's just like, just ban him. Just ban him. You can't do it. Not anymore. They're too complicated in terms of, I feel like they're stopping, and the announcers don't know how to talk about them because it's either, oh, that's a horrible way to take a penalty, or wow, he was so calm and composed.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be behind that, and we'll talk about that when we get a little bit later, because there's also some conversation about a game that just happened on the day of this recording, which is in the quarterfinals, where this is obviously a problem as well. But there's more to this whole pausing conversation and issue that I'm sure we can touch on in just a bit. But yeah, obviously, guys, there's been a lot to happen in the last week since we were last on. So let's just talk about it. I'm going to run through the games real quick that were played in the round of 16, and we'll go through every scoreline. And then we're going to go and focus on a few of them, okay? So first up on the list, well, no surprising anybody here. We're going to start with Canada's slacking they just received from Morocco. 3-0 Morocco over Canada. Honestly, I don't think any of us really expected Canada to keep going. So this was kind of expected when they matched up against Morocco. But to see that bad of a showing from this Canadian team, that was rough to see. A 1-0 victory for France over Paraguay. That was inevitable. It almost felt from the word go that France was going to pull it off, but Paraguay did put a great fight in through 40 minutes of that match before it really was just like, okay, France is going to stranglehold. Norway upsetting Brazil in what is one of the more stunning matchups. This
Really?
one, it was statistically and betting odds. It is an upset, especially considering they scored 2 late goals from none other than the striking Viking himself. You mentioned Hector early on, the England matchup versus Mexico. 10-man England goes on to win at Mexico 3-2 in one of the more incredible games we've seen, but not the most incredible of the round. Still, Portugal, Spain beat Portugal, knocking out Cristiano Ronaldo. And Portugal, we will probably never see Cristiano Ronaldo in another World Cup match for the rest of our life, unless he's coaching potentially, but I don't think that's happening. Belgium just belt to ass against the USA. There's no better way to put it. That was awful. And then Argentina coming back to beat Egypt, literally a stunner. And we'll talk about this one a little more later. And then Switzerland sneaking past Colombia in penalties, as Nick referenced, the penalty conversation that did come up in that match as well. As well as in the Brazil match, it came up, as well as, all over the place. But let's flash back to some of these host conversations. So first, I want to go back to Hector, and we're going to lead this off with Canada, specifically Jesse Marsh's comments after the game. After the match, he says, I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't feel like pulling up the full quote, but he says, you know what? I'm just proud that we played our game the way we want to play it. No Alphonso Davies. Kyle Larin didn't see the field for the whole game. I don't know what to say about this other than to say, what game were you trying to play, Jesse Marsh? Because it wasn't a game I was ready to watch. So, Hector, what are your thoughts when you see Canada, you see how far they made it, and everything that you witnessed up to this point? Can Jesse Marsh be proud of playing the way they played?
I mean, I think if you're for Canada's sake, I mean, once again, you're going. This is the furthest they've gone, right? In the World Cup now, because I mean they haven't gotten out of the group stage in the last ones, so they exceeded expectations, if you will. But it's crazy because you're talking about a generation of players that are really putting Canada on the map right now at this point. Maybe I've been watching too much How I Met Your Mother.
Honestly, the way they played, they could beat Canada for a little bit.
But no, I mean, once again, all the hype about Alphonso Davies, and I mean, I did highlight Alphonso Davies, but I did say, when healthy, he could be one of the elites, and that's been a concern for him for quite some time. But still, then, I mean, Canada still has a good amount of players with strong identities to the national team. I mean, Tajon Buchanan, when he has his moments, he could be clinical. Jonathan David, I think he had his moments, but at the same time, it's just, I think what happened with him last season, where he was still trying to find a club near the summer, finally gets his move to Juventus. But, Juventus has their own laundry list of issues that maybe wasn't an ideal place for him to really get the best out of him. Maybe he could have stayed at Lille for another season. But, I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many players on this Canadian team that you want to see them do well. And I think in the round of 32, they had an awesome moment, right? That winner that they got when they played against who they ended up playing? I think it was South Africa. Which, by the way, South Africa, one hell of a fight as well.
Absolutely.
But Canada, I think they exceeded their expectations. Now the Morocco game, at the end of the day, you're going up against a Goliath now in this game. I think at this point, Morocco is not a dark horse team or a team that can they get through? I mean, their identity is very much what they are. They have some of the best players in the world. You have Hakimi, you have Brahim Diaz. You got Brahim Diaz to switch over from Spain to now Morocco, and still they have a ton of talent on that team just in general. So they are and looking more and more like one of the stronger African nations, and maybe for a while now, because that team is still pretty young. So who's to say how many more guys end up playing for that Moroccan national team as well, who have those French ties or Spanish ties or any European tie, that they feel that they can really get more with that Moroccan side. They're probably going to, especially, next World Cup, Morocco is one of the host nations. So you would definitely want to be on that team, right? So I think for Canada, you went up against a really good team, a really strong team, a team that made it to the semifinals not that long ago. Obviously, funny enough, had a rematch of that semifinal just now. But still, I mean, I think Morocco was clearly the better team. I don't think anybody doubted Morocco beating Canada, but I don't know what Jesse Marsh is talking about as far as playing their game, because I didn't see them playing their game. I saw Morocco putting it to them and maybe eased up on them as well.
Yeah, no, it honestly was probably a gift that they only got out of there losing 3-0. Nick, what are your thoughts on Canada throughout this run and even, Jesse Marsh's comments and everything on top of it?
I mean, I thought at least for their run, they should be proud of how they did. And like losing to Morocco is a natural like conclusion to their World Cup. It's not like they beat who they beat in terms of like they never like beat anybody above their weight class, and then they never like lost to anyone really under their weight class. So they kind of like had it sounds like we were like a realistic World Cup. I think it was good that they probably grew the game a little bit in their country through those home games. Yeah, I think they should be proud. And with Marsh's comments, this is kind of like a classic American coach thing to make some like crazy outlandish statement after the game. And like maybe it's through ego or whatever, but like take the ire off the team and put it onto you, and just say something like absolutely crazy to make everyone start talking about you and your comments and not really how your team played. So that I kind of thought he was going for like the classic like American coach playbook. And I thought it like I was like, oh, that's what he's doing. He doesn't, I mean, obviously he's like defending his team, but he doesn't believe what he's really saying.
Also doesn't help that he's been making a lot of crazy comments just in general. I mean,
that is true.
Any chance he gets to take a jab at the U.S. men's national team, I feel like he's just gonna go ahead and go for it. I mean, to the point where Clint Dempsey is even telling him to shut up at this point. But I look, he just sounds like someone that really wanted the job, felt he was qualified for the job, and then at the end of it all, just didn't get the job, and so then he had to take the Canadian national team, which I don't think is a bad job in general. You have Alfonso, we listed some very talented players. And I mean, we got the resurrection of Cal Lauren. So, I mean, who's not happy? Well, maybe not the resurrection of Cal Lauren, but we got to see Cal Lauren back after a rough stint at Orlando, not because of his playing, more so of his driving. But I think at the end of the day, he got his move to Europe. We kind of forgot that he existed for a while, but every time he comes in and wears that red shirt, you kind of look at it and you're like, I don't know if Jonathan David should be starting when the way Cal Lauren is playing. And so, I think that they had a good team. They have a really good group of players. We keep talking about like the importance of having this World Cup here in North America because it's going to inspire the future of that country. And I think for Canada, like to see their national team go far, and I mean, maybe without their best player in Alfonso Davies and still making it to the round of 16, getting out of the group in general, but getting into the round of 16, I think there's going to be a lot of Canadians that may throw that hockey stick away and put on some boots and go out there and try to get a spot with the Canadian national team.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. The 5-match thing. So obviously this World Cup was different than any other World Cup because there was an extra round in between the round of 16 or in between the group stage and the round of 16. Normally you go straight into the round of 16. There's not a round of 32. So all host nations hit 5 games, which if you ask most of the North American fans, except for Mexico fans, before the tournament, hey, if you play 5 matches in this tournament, would you be happy with that? Most of us would probably be like, well, I mean, that feels pretty good because that's quarterfinals level. And I think that's the weird thing about this tournament, right? Is like with the additional extra stage, you now have 5 matches and you're ending at the round of 16. And so it looks worse on a piece of paper afterwards than the reality of it. And that's, I think, the problem. And we're going to move to Mexico now. And Nick, I want to start with you since we got a little bit of Hector's point of view earlier. But I want to move to you for your point of view before we go back to Hector here for Mexico. If you're Mexican fans, obviously they're ones that they always have World Cup hopes. They accept their CONCACAF nation, but they have World Cup aspirations. They want to lift the trophy. They feel aggrieved every time they don't, and that's just by nature who they are and how they are as fans. And I understand it. I accept that. I actually kind of like it. And then again, this is not a Mexico fan account by any means, but when it comes to that accepting of the fanship, I agree with them. I feel like talent wise, they are a top tier nation when it comes to football. And so this is something that, I approve of. So, Nick, when you look at this Mexican national team performance throughout this tournament, is this something that they can be proud of, or is this something they feel aggrieved by at the end of the day?
I mean, they should definitely feel some pride in this. It felt like before the tournament there wasn't like any juice for the team, and it felt like it was like we don't really know what we're gonna get with these guys. And I think they really showed out, and they really like played, as Hector mentioned, CONCACAF football, and it was very good to like they represented CONCACAF in the style of play really well. And I think also like I know this sucks because they lost, but people are going to be talking about that England-Mexico game for 50 years because that game just felt unlike any game we might see the rest of the World Cup, because it was like in Azteca, Mexico, England, and it felt just like big. And the announcers, at least for Fox, were like talking about how big the game felt, how crazy the atmosphere was. Every goal felt like unexpected. There was no like there was a few goals where it was like the team was building and building and building. Oh, and then they finally scored. It was just kind of like unexpected goals and like flashpoints here and there, a red card, and it kind of had everything. And although they lost, I think they can definitely leave this tournament with their head held high, which is something you can't say for every host nation.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that one here in a minute. Hector, obviously on this one, you've let some of your thoughts go already on this, but I want to get one thought in particular. The Club America Mexico pipeline. Does it continue to pay off, or is it time to maybe for Mexico to start looking elsewhere?
I don't really know if it really is Club America. I think it's always been Liga MX has always brought out some bright, promising Mexican players. I think the theme of this Mexican national team, though, is more so los extranjeros, the foreigners. That's what extranjero means in Spanish, by the way. That came in and played for Mexico, and I'm not calling them foreigners by any means. That's not
that's the Mexican fans reference to them.
Yeah. Right. So, for instance, you have a Colombian Mexican in Julian Quiones, who I think definitely has become like maybe not rising star is probably not the right word for him, especially because he's played for quite some time, especially and it's a player that I've gotten to watch from his time in Atlas, and obviously made his move to Tigres, and then obviously now is in Saudi Arabia, which I think I mentioned him before the show. But when we started the first episode, I was like, this guy can be something that these guys can exploit a little bit.
He was your dark horse for sure.
He was one of my dark horse players, and I think it was great to see him live up to the billing. I definitely would have loved to see more goals for Raul Jimenez, and I think it's just because of just a great story for him. A Club America guy. So there's your first one. But just his story in general, everything that the anticipation of what he was to become, leaves Mexico to go play for Atletico Madrid. Obviously didn't pan out over there. Then went to Benfica, makes more of a name for himself. Now has some experience under his belt. Then goes and makes the move to the Premier League, right? Gets an unfortunate head injury that many people were wondering whether or not he's going to be the same player. Doesn't get called up from Mexico for a very long time because of that concern. And, he quietly in the lower levels in the EPL made a name for himself. Fulham became I would say a respect. I don't know if legend's the right word, but a respected player.
Yeah.
A legend in Wolves for sure.
Yes.
And I mean, his return to the Mexican national team, like, yeah, it wasn't great watching him win the Nations League, but, just seeing him score goals again and seeing him be an impactful player, seeing him score goals for Mexico in the Gold Cup, it was great to see it. Like, I'm still hoping that maybe he gets a few more Mexican call-ups, just because I do generally would love to see him surpass Chicharito, and that's no slight at Chicharito. But I just think Raul Jimenez has always been the pure nine that Mexico has always wanted. When you think of like the names like Borghetti, Hugo Sanchez, right? Like these are the names that you think of with Mexican strikers, and I think Raul Jimenez deserves to be up amongst those names as well. And I hope he gets a few more call-ups. I don't think he necessarily mentioned that it's the end of his road for him. Obviously, he's making the return to Wolves to help them get promoted to the back to the Premier League next season. So I hope that this is not the end of Raul Jimenez with Mexico. We got to see another legend, America guy, by the way, and Memo Ochoa. He came in at the last group stage match to just have his final World Cup appearance, and you could see what that loss meant to him. He wants to see Mexico move further and further. But I think, like we mentioned, his time has passed with Mexico, and while it's cool to see him play in a sixth World Cup, his time is gone, and it's gonna feel weird for Mexico. But I think they're in good hands with Rangel, or if it's Malagon once he's fully healthy. Mexico has some good keepers, at least in the framework. There's a lot of good potential Mexican players right now. Cesar Montes and Johan Vasquez. I mentioned that these two guys would be very pivotal when it comes to the center back position, and that's another reason why they were so locked in throughout this tournament. I mean, they were so good that people that have concerns about Jorge Sanchez, like, it was a non-factor because how good this back line was, right? Lira is now getting looks for opportunities in Europe, and I mean, a lot of people were shocked when he was chosen over Edson Alvarez, another well-respected Mexican six. Sometimes plays the center back,
former captain too.
Former captain, and I mean, was given the captain's armband whenever he did come on the pitch. But I mean, he earned his spot in the starting lineup. We got to see. I mean, and then obviously the big name, right? Gilberto Mora. I mean, the kid was amazing. It was just great seeing a person of his age doing what he's doing. I believe he's now the youngest player to have played in a World Cup match, by the way. So I mean, the potential is there. Hopefully Liga MX doesn't do what they always do, is just try to hold on to these players as long as they humanly can. I hope that he gets his big opportunity in Europe. I don't know if Liverpool is the place for him, but I mean, if I want to see him get a shot. I think if he's able to get a shot, I think we're talking about a very maybe. I don't want to put too much pressure because I think we need to stop throwing so much pressure on these young players. But I mean, if he continues the trajectory that he's going, we're talking about maybe throwing him up there with the likes of Cuauhtemoc Blanco, with the likes of Hugo Sanchez, as some of the greatest Mexican players of their time. And I'll throw in Chicharito as well because I think he does deserve his flowers as well.
For sure. By the way, Gilberto Mora is the sixth youngest player to ever play in a World Cup match. In front of him is literally days between him and number one. So not a lot of difference between those guys. But yeah, it is something to watch for Mexico for sure. I don't want to say I'm excited for the future of Mexican football, but I am kind of excited for the future of Mexican football. And every Mexican fan should be. But something to be concerned about, it's not Mexico. It's the third host nation that we haven't talked about yet. We've kind of been waiting on this one. There was much ado about Flo Balogun and this red card. There were a lot of comments about how important it was to get it overturned. And then there were certain big heads that had to get involved from both politics and media and saying they're supporting this. It gets overturned. They talk all their smack. And then Belgium says, "Oh, hold my beer," and delivers one of the biggest ass whoopings of this tournament. And so, with that said, let's talk about the USA. First, I'm going to start with you, Nick. I'm going to go back to you on this one. What are your thoughts about the USA's performance throughout this tournament and everything that happened in Belgium against Belgium?
Well, if you remove the Belgium game, they played actually really well. The Paraguay we'll always have the Paraguay game as a USMNT fan base, and we'll always be able to watch the highlights and think, wow, this team was incredible, especially considering how far Paraguay went based off of that one game. We would have guessed beating Germany. And then, the Bosnia-Herzegovina game, they were down to 10 men, and then they looked like they played even better. So going into that Belgian game, all right, we're without Balogun. We'll have Pepe. It'll be kind of like, maybe a little underdog vibe. And then everything happens with the Balogun reversal. And it almost seemed like that affected us way more than it affected Belgium in terms of like game planning. And like we didn't really switch anything up. We didn't even consider Belgium's approach. It was just like, oh, we're just going to play our game, which I mean, there's two schools of thought. Do you try to game plan for your team, the team you're playing, or do you just kind of play your own game? And it seemed like Pochettino was like, we've been doing well this whole tournament. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And it just felt that game showed that all this kind of like talk about these guys, the kind of like American spirit, this grit, it just all just fell down the drain. And it felt like there's two big moments I want to point to. And I think the first one was the hydration break, and they were down 3-1. And there is no rah-rah speech being made by anyone. Not Tyler Adams, not Tim Ream, not Weston McKennie. Pulisic had come off by this point, but not even the coach. Like, there was no like classic, like, all right, bring it in. Like, we've got 20 minutes to save our World Cup. Let's go out and let's give everything we have and everything we got. And like, if we're going to lose, like, let's go down swinging. And there was none of that. It just, they were like kind of standing around drinking, I mean, hydrating. It is the hydration break for, so they were taking the break seriously with the hydrating. And there was none of that. And there was like no like chutzpah. There was no just like, let's get this done. Let's go. So that was very, very concerning for like the characters of the team. None of them showed up in that moment. And not everyone is that guy, so that's, totally okay. But there were guys who we thought were that guy to grab everyone in the middle and bring them in and say, and just get them on form and on task. And that didn't happen. And then the second thing is the ball goes back to Matt Freese. And you know what? Every goalie is probably taught, if you're that far out, just hit it, as they say in England, hit it into rosette. Just kick it as far as you can into the stands. So it'll take some time and rush back to your goal. And the encapsulation of what America was trying to do this World Cup, which they did at some points, was play this like possession-based, one-touch, two-touch football. So he takes a touch and it goes horribly wrong and it gets intercepted. And I think it was Van Aken who scored the goal, and Belgium scores, and it's like, oh goodness, what were we doing there? Matt Freese hadn't even, I think someone said it was like his 20th game for his country. And it's like, well, of course he didn't have that much experience in those moments. He panicked. And you know what? Goalies, as they say, you make 9 saves and have a blunder on the 10th. Everyone remembers the blunder. So it's a little bit unfair, but it is a microcosm for what happened with the US in that game of like, oh, they just weren't quite on it. And there wasn't that leader in the goal who could just be like, all right, I'm going to thump this as far as I can out and dead sprint back to my goal and turn around and make sure it'll still be 2-1. Obviously we're not playing well, but you know what? It's still 2-1. And he tried to make a play and there was just no play to be made. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know if we'll get into it where the US goes from here, but my final point is this, and this may be harsh, but we didn't qualify in 2018. But the promise was, hey, look at all these young guys. Look at all these young guys going to Europe. And over time, in those 8 years since, it was like building to this moment of like, holy cow, we're following these young guys. I don't know if you guys do this, but I kind of like follow them all in Europe and like, look how well they're playing. Oh my goodness. Tyler Adams is great for Bournemouth. McKinney's doing well at Juventus. Pulisic scoring goals in Milan. Well, not recently, but last year. Yeah. Dest is killing it. And all this kind of like, all right, we're following these guys. And to basically go out like that, it felt like I wasted 8 years of my life following this team. And it's like, unfortunately for the national team setup, you can't get like a new team. You can't transfer in a bunch of players. The next World Cup is in 4 years. These guys are all still going to be like early 30s. A lot of them may actually be playing and starting. So that'll be interesting, but I just felt like, wait, all that for this? And it felt very underwhelming.
Yeah. Hector, I'm going to give you a chance to start this out. We'll start with the Belgium game first. and then we can talk aftermath of the Belgium game afterwards. But let's start with the Belgium game first.
Yeah, I mean, to describe the frustration that I was going through in that game, like I said, I guess watching Paraguay, which probably is like everyone's game, they're gonna keep looking like, look, this is what we can be capable of. You know, I think that this World Cup, at least prior to going into that Belgium game, the U.S. didn't look like the U.S. that we normally, at least this new generation of Americans that we've seen in the World Cup. Because in Qatar, every game was frustrating to watch.
Mm-hmm.
They got the results, but at the end of the day, it was just I was in a glass box of emotions every single time because it just didn't feel. There was never a confident victory with the U.S. men's national team. We got 2 confident victories from this U.S. men's national team in the group stage. The Paraguay game was a confident victory. The game against Australia was a confident victory. Yes, it was a grinded out battle, but you never felt the U.S. was going to fall apart at any time against Australia. And maybe it is, and I don't want to take jabs at these nations. I think Australia put up Australia and Paraguay both beat Turkey. So I'm not trying to take any, and then, but all these 3, we're talking about 2 countries that did move on to the round of 16. So, I mean, there's no way you can, one went to penalties against Egypt, the other one beat Germany. And then, obviously, and I would say, Paraguay put up a great fight against France. So clearly they don't suck. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for anyone that wants to keep taking jabs about those victories not meaning anything, it doesn't really matter. They're focused on college football now. So I don't really think that those people really matter to this point. But I think, and then the Turkey game, obviously everyone had concerns, but once again, we weren't starting our usual 11, and maybe that should have been some concerns as well as that. It's just maybe our roster isn't as deep, or maybe, they clearly were playing with the heart. They just didn't have the talent level to beat the likes of a Turkey that was really just wanting to get a victory, just to go home with something besides having to go eliminate it. But you still found a way to spin zone that Turkey game because it I don't want to say it was a meaningless match, but it did show us what we had as far as like the back end of the team. Bosnia, I think maybe some moments where you're like, this game's feeling a little too close, but I think Bosnia putting up a good fight at the end of the day. And then still when they were down a man, when Balogun got that red card, they did like Nick said, they looked much better when they were down a man. I mean, they were creating chances. They got that free kick that led to that amazing Malik Tillman free kick. And then going into this Belgium game, I think slow. It was just slow. Everything felt slow. Like there was no urgency. There was none of that stuff that we saw from the Paraguay game. None of that stuff that we saw from Australia, where they just didn't have the press going. Like they weren't as agile as we saw them in defense. Like the goals that they gave up, the first 2 goals for Belgium that they gave up were like, how was that? How did you let that man get that? There was guys around the area, but no one got in front of it. Like just mistakes on mistakes. Like it was never where this isn't any like jabs at Belgium, but it never felt the reason why Belgium got those goals was because they were just the better team, had the most talent. While they are a very talented team, by the way, I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but it was never felt like it was because they were just very much the better team and they have the best players. They have players that play in X amount of clubs or whatever you want to say. It just felt like the U.S. was just giving them the easy pass. That's what it felt like to me. I mean, I didn't even get to celebrate Malik Tillman's goal. I got 30 seconds of being able to be happy for the Malik Tillman free kick, which I was like, cool, back-to-back free kicks. And, I think he became like the first American player to have back-to-back free kicks in the World Cup, and like, I was like, okay, this is awesome. And then only for them to just waltz right back into, we just kicked the ball off. And then all of a sudden, a header, which there's 2 guys in the vicinity of that ball. No one gets a head on it. And they punished the U.S. We didn't even get to celebrate the Malik Tillman goal because they looked lackadaisical. I don't think it's on Poch. Like, I don't think this performance was on Poch because at the end of the day, he does the prep work, and I get all those things. But at the end of the day, the players on the field need to play, and they look like there was something bothering them. It looked like they lost. They were in their minds. They were already losing this match, the way they were playing. That's exactly what I felt. I never felt that the U.S. felt like they were going to go toe-to-toe with this Belgium side. I don't know if they were thinking about 2014 or they were thinking what happened in March, but they just did not look at the team. There was too many things going on the side. I mean, Dave Portnoy just being a moron, just like talking nonsense after nonsense, which, this is kind of where all the people from everywhere else in the world, like, this is the depiction of an American, and probably you're not wrong. And so it was frustrating. And on top of that, the overturned decision, which, look, at the end of the day, like, I didn't agree with the red card decision for Balogun. I didn't agree with the use of slow motion for the VAR call. But at the end of the day, they called him a red card, and that's it. Like, use that example if you want for Cristiano Ronaldo. Use the example, you pulled the Messi picture if you want to. But at the end of the day, that referee called it a red card. Like, would I have wanted Balogun on the field? Sure. I mean, he wasn't even on the field to begin with in the Belgium game anyways. I mean, he had his moments, but it just, clearly he was not a difference maker as everyone made it seem to be. And this isn't me being like, oh, I'm the anti-Balogun guy, because I do like Balogun, even though I have my preference to Pepe. But, like, I think at the end of the day, Balogun, while he does provide you some great moments, he can be a clinical player. There's certain play styles that is not going to fit to his game, and I think Belgium's backline is one of those instances. The Bosnia game, you can prime example. You got bullied throughout that game. That was people forget, want to forget about what happened in the Bosnia game. But the goal for Bosnia was to bully the hell out of Balogun and frustrate him. And frustrate him they did, because that's what got to the red card. Whether you want to use like, oh, it was an accident, he didn't mean to do it, but you can see the frustration in Balogun that he just could not get anything going. They were not calling any fouls that he felt that should have been given to him. You can see him getting frustrated, where maybe it was an accident, but you knew it was only a matter of time that he was going to make a boneheaded penalty decision of getting a foul, whether it could be a yellow card or a red card. Am I saying that was what happened there? No. But at the end of the day, the referee gave him a red card, and I think it was crazy that it was overturned, mainly just because at the end of the day, you're giving another egotistical American a chance to state his impact on the team. And I think added more of a distraction to the team. Now because let's be honest, not a lot of those guys are necessarily, wearing a certain red hat, if you get what I mean. So I think, maybe they felt a little indifferent about that, about the involvement of certain politicians, which, leave it to the board that Kelcey has behind them. We got to leave politics out of the game, just in general. But I think, I think that there was a lot of outside factors, people just talking all that they want to talk. And, it did like fuel to the fire for Belgium. They were like, all right, we're going to just take it to them. We're going to press them high. We're going to be frustrating. We're not going to let them breathe when they're in the back line. And that they did. I think that's the reason why, the Matt Freese incident, I feel like if there was any momentum, which going into that second half, you look like this team was starting to look like they were going to be that team from Australia, that team against Bosnia, right? The way they were pressing, you're like, okay, they're moving, they're getting, okay, they're finally playing with something. That chutzpah that Nick was mentioning, only for Matt Freese to just basically take everything out of that game. That's when we lost. In my mind, exactly when we lost, because at that point the game was out of reach. The team, the body language was there. Christian Pulisic, that's when you start seeing him start walking more. And that's one of the most frustrating things at the end of the day, man, is you could tell when a player is checked out. And Christian Pulisic, it gave me the same vibes as we always see him. Maybe you can go back to, the 2018 World Cup qualifiers where, the body language that he was getting in that Trinidad Tobago game. You can go back to the vibes that you saw him in Qatar when he just realized that they were just not going to beat the Dutch. Like, this is what Christian Pulisic does. And, all the pressure that's going to be put on Christian Pulisic that has been given, because once again, it's not his fault, right? It's not his fault that Christian Pulisic was dubbed the LeBron James of soccer. It's not Christian Pulisic's fault that he played out of the Borussia Dortmund Academy and was playing at 17 years old. It is not his fault that he got called up from the U.S. men's national team at 17 years old. It's not his fault that he was doing things that seemed out of the norm for an American player. It's not his fault. It's the US's fault. It is the US's fault because we put up this ridiculous expectation that this guy was going to be better than Landon Donovan, that he was going to be better than Clint Dempsey, when the reality is we didn't know what he was going to be. I mean, he's definitely not a Freddie Adu. He's definitely not a Julian Green. He's definitely a great player, and he's definitely going to be will go down as one of the best American players because he has brought those moments. But Christian Pulisic is just not the guy. He's never been the guy. He should never be the captain. I've said that more than plenty of times on Instant AFC to the point of ad nauseum. He's a great player. I'm not taking that away from him. But when the pressure's put on him, you just can tell he's not up for it. He can't be the best player in AC Milan. We've seen it. He went quiet after being the best player in AC Milan, a team that probably wasn't really that good to begin with. So maybe take that with a grain of salt. But his time with Chelsea, he was never the best player in Chelsea, but he provided moments, and when healthy, obviously. Borussia Dortmund, he was never the best player, right? He was never going to be over Marco Rose or Julian Brandt. That's not him, but he was able to thrive in that environment because there was no pressure on him. When he was great for AC Milan, it was because there was no pressure on him. He was just doing what he was supposed to do. The pressure was on Rafael Leao. The pressure was on, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Like, the pressure was on everybody else except for Christian Pulisic because he was just there trying to find his grounding after what happened at Chelsea. And once again, it's the U.S. that put all this pressure on him, dubbing him the LeBron James of soccer, dubbing him better than Landon Donovan, everyone thinking that he's going to be the first world-class player that U.S. has ever produced. And, on top of that, you put him on a stupid docu-series where you just let him and his dad and, for some reason, Tim Weah to speak out on the former U.S. players. Let's be honest, man. If you go to any other country and you watch the media, the sports media talk about the football of a club in whatever town you want to talk about, or the national team in general, they get criticized. Mm-hmm. There's guys that know in England that know if I didn't – prime example, Euro, Saka, Sancho, Rashford. Those guys knew that they could not be walking around the streets of England after the penalties that they missed in that Euro final. They knew it. They knew that they were not going to be safe. They knew they were going to be criticized. There are certain things when a little bit out of line, but still, they knew the criticism was coming to play. The beauty of American soccer players that they get is they know that they're never going to have that problem. Christian Pulisic could, in fact, walk around in New York and maybe no one's going to spot him because they don't know who he is. He knows ESPN is not going to be talking about, look how bad Christian Pulisic was at AC Milan today, because they don't care. This is not what they cover. All they care about is, what shampoo bottle did LeBron James pick today? Because that means he might go to the Celtics. So, it's things like that, man, like where there's no pressure here. And when we do apply, when the media does try to put pressure on the U.S., everyone's just like, relax, guys, it's soccer.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I said, it's not Christian Pulisic's fault. But he's going to be put under a microscope because we dubbed him our next legend. And he's probably going to be up there in conversations, but I don't think he's passing Landon Donovan or Clint Dempsey at any time soon. Oh, shoot, definitely not Tim Howard. So I think that this was a wake-up call for all the U.S. soccer supporters that we need to stop overhyping players. And I mean, this is the part that sucks was this was a guy that was actually playing. Julian Green didn't even play a single match for Bayern Munich, and we dubbed him like our Pelé. These were the things that we were doing as U.S. soccer fans because we want to have a world-class player. The reality is we're probably never – I won't be alive when the U.S. finally has a world-class player because there's so many steps that the U.S. are just not achieving yet to even have that conversation. The ridiculous notion of us having a golden generation. Like, we're not near the golden generation. This is the first group of players that went through some sort of proper, and I hate Kelcey knows how much I hate using the word proper, system. Whether it was MLS academies, whether it was playing for Borussia Dortmund or Schalke, or playing in Bayern Munich's academy system. By the way, if you guys forget about Chris Richards. But like, this is the first group of players that didn't go play college soccer and then, you know, we're playing professionally at the age of 25. Like, these are guys that are like 17, 18, 19, making professional debuts. This is the first group of players. That's what we need to start talking about more. This is the first group of players that we've ever seen playing at that age group. Because if you try to explain to an English person Christian Pulisic or why we think Christian Pulisic is great, to them they're like, that's what you're supposed to do. What we're doing is that person that brags about paying their bills as if they want an award for paying their bills. It's stuff that you're supposed to do. What Christian Pulisic has achieved in the sport of football, it's not new to someone from Mexico. It's not new to a guy from England, Germany, whatever country you want to think of that has a better football culture, right? You're supposed to be playing when you're 17. You're supposed to be getting if you're really good, you're playing at 16. But playing at 17, making your debut, coming off the bench, that's not new. That's what you're supposed to do. That you're supposed to be a pro at 16. You know, like that's new to Americans because we've never, you know, LeBron James was 18 when he made his debut in the NBA. You know, Kobe was 18 when he was making, and we don't even do that anymore, right? Because now you have to be 19 years old making your NBA debuts because you have to play at least 1 year of college basketball. There's no academy systems here in the U.S. There isn't. Like that, I mean, obviously in soccer, yes, but like football doesn't like American football doesn't have an academy system. You know, basketball doesn't have academy systems. You can say AAU as an example, but that's not you're not going straight to pros after playing AAU. So at the end of the day, like, it's our fault that Christian Pulisic gets so much criticism because he was just doing what he was supposed to be doing. And we just over exaggerated what this guy is going to be.
No, that's fair. Couple things to talk about here, though, just so we all kind of have perspective. So you mentioned Pulisic, so obviously we're going to pull this news up about Pulisic if nobody has heard yet. This came out today, which is 2 days after the match. Christian Pulisic was diagnosed with a microfracture and bone bruise for the tibia and fibula in his right leg, suffered during the match against Belgium. U.S. Soccer and AC Milan will be collaborating on his recovery plan. So the whole leaving the game situation, and specifically I'm going to call out Landon Donovan and Tim Howard for this. They said, your leg was intact. Why are you leaving this match? Play through it. I don't necessarily agree with that. The guy does have a legitimate microfracture. That is something that if you continue to play with, and especially against a team that has been roughing you up, and in a tournament that has been roughing you up, that's a terrible idea. Also, to add a little perspective on this, let's compare it to the best all-time run for the U.S. men's national teams, which was the semifinalist run in the Korea-Japan tournament in 2002. We're not going to count the 1930s.
That was 1930 was the semifinal run.
That's semifinal. No, quarterfinal was 2002. Okay. Yeah, okay. Semifinal was only 3 games. We're not counting that. That's throwing out the window because that we can't compare those two. So closest we can get is South Korea, Japan in 2002, which was, like I said, the quarterfinal run. They both played 5 matches in 2002 and in 2026. And in comparing the teams, you look at their wins. The USA won more games in 2026. However, they did beat one European team, specifically Portugal, en route to that quarterfinalist. There has not been another European victory for the United States in a World Cup match since that Portugal victory until Bosnia in 2026. So if we're going to compare them, the only thing you can say is that the title of the round they got knocked out in is lower than the title of the round they got knocked out in 2002. Is that fair? I don't know. But here's the stats for this. 2-0-1 for the 2026 team in the group stage. Goals for 8, goals against 4. So a +4 goal differential. In 2002, they finished second in the group. 1-1-1 was the record. 5 goals for, 1 goal against, a -1 goal differential. They wouldn't have advanced in 2026, is what that means. So when you look at these two and you look at the stats of the all-time best U.S. men's national team run, when you look at games and everything, because again, we're not counting a game that was played almost 100 years ago. Let's just get that out of the conversation now. If you look at that, it's hard for me to look at any Landon Donovan and Tim Howard comments, as much as I love them, and Clint Dempsey, and say, you understand, because they don't. None of those players really understand the level of play that is required to go through 5 matches at a World Cup. They understand 4, but they do not understand 5. And that's a different level with more teams, more involvement, and a tougher round of 32 than ever, that first round of knockout stages than ever before. I think that's a situation where you have to put this in perspective. And like, as frustrated and pissed off as I am that game sucked for the U.S., putting this in perspective for the U.S. men's national team is we are getting better still. To Hector's point, we are not a golden generation. That golden generation is a long ways away. We have to fix our pathway to the pros first. But there is still opportunity for the U.S. to continue improving. But to Hector's point, the problem has always been when people decide to get involved that have no skin in the game, from the media, politics, outside sources, it ruins what has been a good thing for the U.S. men's national team. The U.S. men's national team needs the support. There's no doubt about that. They need the finances, they need the money, they need the support. What they don't need is the CEO of a major sports conglomerate trashing the U.S. men's national team after literally only getting involved for 2 days. And then literally throwing the jersey in the trash and ruining an entire generation's perspective on soccer. When I was growing up, soccer was looked at, and pardon my language for this might be offensive to some, and it's not intentional, but they were called field fairies, was what a soccer player was called growing up. That went well out of the way in 2010 till now. I've seen the same comments popping up now on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing to watch it go backwards.
How many times we had to hear the same backward bleep comment about how soccer is this communist ploy to and I mean crazy. there was once a belly up media personality that used to say that to me. And it's hard. It's hard to, for someone that grew up on this sport, and I think it's a tricky situation when it comes to being just a football fan in general here in the United States, because you are on this, one, for me, it's culturally, right? Like, I grew up in that culture where this game is tied with me. And then you have those people that just look at it as this dumb thing, and they don't see the allure. Why do people obsess over a 1-0 scoreline? Why do people like ties? And now you have those same people trying to fix the sport when it doesn't need to be fixed, because it doesn't need, like, it's funny enough, like, the same people that say that also throw the same comments to those people based in Europe, like, hey, the world doesn't revolve around you, is the same is coming from the same people that are trying to understand how is the World Cup bigger than the Super Bowl? And just at the end of the day, statistics prove everything, right? There's a lot of sports here in the United States, it's stats driven, and the statistic at the end of the day was there was 34 million people watching USA versus Belgium, and I don't know what was the amount of people for the Super Bowl, but I'm pretty sure it was a lot more than that. And it could be a percentage of people that were just hate watching the US, but that's fine. It's still a lot more people that were watching the Super Bowl. Yeah. And so, and this isn't me trying to hate on American sports in general, because I am American at the end of the day. And while I have this fun teetering thing being the phrase in Spanish is "no soy de aquí ni de allá," which is I'm not from here, neither am I from there. It's that whole thing that I go through. And then as a soccer fan or a football fan, I go through it every single day, proving to the football fans how big of a football fan I am, proving to the non-football fans, proving how much I do still like other sports, but I can still defend this game. And it's an ongoing battle that, honestly, as someone that was dumb enough to make a soccer podcast, has to deal with every single day. And yes, it sucks, man. Those comments every time the cycle continues every World Cup when it comes to the US. Yep. There's people that get excited. Let's rally behind the boys. USA, red, white, and blue, blah, blah, blah. Let's go sing Country Roads. Let's go sing Freebird. That was kind of new, but still, it was exciting watching.
Freebird's been around since 2000.
But I mean, playing.
But Country Roads was 100% brand new this year.
Freebird was just because like now the younger generation and TikTok has kind of.
So as part of the American Outlaws early on in my life, we did sing Freebird before a game, and that was in 10, like 09, 10. So it was around then. We did not, however, do anything with Country Roads. That's a brand new one, and obviously that comes from the USA having it as part of its playlist, which is stupid, but whatever.
Neither of the fact. I think what was awesome about this World Cup is that we're seeing the support for the boys, right? People were like the whole stadium singing the national anthem, the people singing, Country Road, having, all this. People were like, hey, let's do more let's do our chants. Like let's do the soccer chants, but let's do it in our way. Let's sing our songs, singing Country Road. Let's sing, Free Bird, whatever American anthems you can think of, as long as it's not Kid Rock. Like, it was cool. Like Americans are now embracing the sport. They're like, oh man, I don't know who this Balogun guy is, but I love him. Malik Tillman, they're learning the names of these players, right? Balogun, Tillman, Richards, loving every bit of them. Maybe even to the point where Christian Pulisic isn't even the main focal point for the U.S. men's national team. And it was amazing. And then only for this game, and I don't know why this game ruined so many people, because you weren't as emotionally invested as I was. And I'm not gonna lie, I was crying.
Mm-hmm.
I cried because I knew what was gonna come from it. I knew exactly what was gonna come from it. And it was the first thing I opened up on Twitter, which was, well, college football starts the next amount of days. Or, well, soccer's dumb anyway. Greater than sign. You got Dave Portnoy sounding like an idiot, which that's not different. But still, at the end of the day, like, everybody just went to, we didn't want to win this thing anyways.
Yeah, it's not.
I did want to win this thing.
Yeah,
I did want to win it. Look, this was coming from a guy that projected the U.S. to be eliminated in the round of 16. I told Edward, I told Kelcey, I was like, round of 16, and I'm happy. I think I even said it on the corner booth.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be happy if this team makes it to the round of 16. And guess what? We made it to the round of 16, and I am not happy. So, because the expectations changed, this team looked, and now I'll say it, they looked like when they had BJ Callahan at coach. They looked like a team. They were playing football.
Yeah.
They were embracing CONCACAF. They were being bullies in the pitch. It was great. This is what I wanted to see. This was the U.S. men's national team of old, right? Mixed in with the modern flair. This is what it was supposed to be. Pochettino was getting these guys to be better.
Yeah.
To play. It's crazy. You had an Argentine telling you to be proud to be an American. You had a guy that, that's not from this country telling you to fight for the badge, fight for the shirt. Someone
to be
that's
fair,
not
though, that is the Argentinian way when it comes, especially midfielders and defensive midfielders and defenders.
I absolutely agree.
Which Poch falls into that category, and so he knows that mentality is. It's like,
and I absolutely agree. But guess what? What was Berhalter doing?
Yeah.
And it's funny. Like we had someone was making fun of Jurgen Klinsmann for wanting the guys to sing the national anthems. Right? Like he had them. Was like, these guys, they're making us sing the national anthems. Yeah, dude. Like, the thing is, this is the only country, and this isn't me trying to get into a soapbox or anything, but you see, like, the players from any other country, players from Paraguay, players from South Africa, you see what it means to them to sing that national anthem. Like, there's dudes, like, Mexico. Like, honestly, if someone is singing the national anthem, like, if they have, like, a celebrity sing, like, like a professional artist to sing the national, cut that mic off. Let the stadium echo. Because I'll tell you, as a Salvadorian, or as someone that has Salvadorian ties, whenever I went to go watch the Salvadorian national team here in Houston, you can hear us sing the national anthem from like 20 blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, there was a sense of pride. And I mean, yeah, Pochettino was telling them, play with pride, play with fight. I don't know what happened in this Belgian game. I don't.
No. It was egregious. And here's one thing to cap off the whole commentary that comes from people who don't understand soccer. There's only ever been 8 countries to win the World Cup from 2 confederations. the European count, so UEFA, Europe, and then CONMEBOL with South Africa. So, and we look at that, the top winners of it, Brazil, not in the round of 16, Germany, not in the round of 16. Sorry, Brazil got knocked out in the round of 16. Germany didn't even make the round of 16. Italy didn't even make the World Cup. Argentina progressed. France progressed. Uruguay didn't make it. England progressed. Spain progressed. Netherlands didn't make it. Netherlands didn't win one, but it stops at Spain. So it's like, let's not even kid ourselves into thinking like this is offensive because we didn't win the World Cup. Yes, it sucks. And because I'm with you right there with you, Hector. Like I was 100% on board. Like 4 games, if we can get 4 games and it looks good, I feel happy. No, I don't feel happy either. I'm frustrated. I'm pissed off. It is no doubt about it. And it's, it is what it is as US. And I'm sure there are more conversations to be had about this. If you ever heard Hector and I talk about this on Insert Name FC, you know for sure that our idea on the pipeline needs to be fixed for 100% certainty. And it's been echoed by countless number of people in the last 3 days. So keep that in mind.
And I'll end it with this. I'll just end it with this. For the people that keep saying, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? The people that are like, I like soccer. I want to get more into it. Recommend me some teams. And I've honestly said it. Look, and I don't like being that guy, but I'll say it. Support your local. What is wrong with just liking? Like, I'm not even saying MLS team. You can, if you're a USL team, first of all, USL has promotion relegation. People won't shut up about promotion relegation. There's promotion relegation in this league. So I don't want to hear any more excuses as I don't watch soccer here in this country because they don't have pro rel. There's a league that has pro rel. So don't support MLS. Go support USL. Go do that if that's what you want to do. If you want to feel better about yourself. But like support your local clubs, man. Like honestly, some of the fandom in USL is amazing and it is addicting. And sometimes I wish I was part of that, but I'm not. I'm a Houston Dynamo fan. And as a matter of fact, I'm a franchise. My team's a franchise. My team literally moved from San Jose. Sorry, Nick. To move to Houston. We let you have the trophies though. We let you have your trophies though.
True.
But
true.
I think at the end of the day, look, I get it. Right? I support Real Madrid, but it's that and the Dynamo, and a little bit of a soft spot for Arsenal. But at the end of the day,
a little bit of a soft spot for Arsenal. Let's
maybe like a massive hard spot for Arsenal. But I don't say I'm first of all, these days being a Gooner just means completely different things. But in general, Madrista trumps over everything. But I still go and root for the Dynamo. I still have a passion for the Dynamo. Kelcey knows I wouldn't shut up about Griffin Dorsey getting traded to Orlando. I still won't stop talking about it. So I have passion for Houston Dynamo. And if the thing is, at the end of the day, if you want to see the game grow, you gotta support it from the home level. You gotta support the local level. Nick supports San Jose. I know that for a fact. Kelcey, I think it's Atlanta United. Sometimes I feel like I'm not signing her, but.
No, to be fair, okay, so I grew up in Utah when Real Salt Lake started as an expansion squad, so obviously I was a fan of Real Salt Lake for a little while. I moved away from Utah, was watching the Atlanta Silverbacks all the time, and then Atlanta United came around, and I was like, all right, I guess I know who I'm rooting for.
But, there's nothing wrong with liking what's here in the U.S. If you want to – and then it should be more satisfying watching it grow.
Yeah.
Watching it develop. At the end of the day, Houston Dynamo, prime example, are – they're just bringing out more and more academy products that are playing for the youth national teams. More names are getting thrown out there. Also, shout out to Hector David Herrera, who just made his call to Mexico's under 15s, by the way. Shout out to that kid. But another Dynamo product, there's more young names that are coming out. I mean, if you guys want to watch Julian Hall before he makes his big move to Europe, over there at Red Bull New York, if you want to see more of Diego Luna before hopefully he goes to Europe at some point. There is San Jose, I don't remember the player's name, but there's a really talented young player. Starts with a T. That's the only thing I know.
Oh, so I don't. It's like Nick Cesar.
There we go.
I call him Cizikas, but it's not Cizikas. It's like Cesaris or something.
Amazing player.
Wait, no, Zacharias?
That might be it.
I know, yeah. There's 22 players right now that are being potentially
put
on the roster for the next World Cup that are right now at the ages of 18 or 17 to 21 that are all potentially going to be conversation for the roster spot that have an Olympic series to go in between here, mind you. And they're all playing in the MLS. There's 3 that aren't, but I'm specifically speaking about MLS players. Like there are a good 20 right now that I can think of that, and I have a list of pulled up that have a conversation for the next World Cup. Diego Luna has an absolute conversation. He's a little older than the list I'm looking at, but he absolutely has a conversation for it. There's players that play all over the United States through USL, especially like, look at the Tampa Bay Rowdies or the Vermont Green, I can forget their nickname is, but they won the tournament. Like there's so many players here that are going to show up for the US once they actually get the spotlight. And I think that's the hardest thing. And by the way, one more thing to pack on, Hector, not just supporting your team, but if you have a couple $1 million in the bank, go support your local rec leagues. Go start your own club teams and make it affordable for people. Let's start there before we start talking about going and buying part ownership in West Ham.
Shout out to Eric Ronaldo, by the way.
Yeah.
Shout out to Eric Ronaldo. And then also for people that are complaining about the goalkeeper position, I think Matt Freese was a stopgap goalkeeper in general. I think he did what he was supposed to. He beat Matt Turner out on the spot that everyone expected would be his, and obviously we saw how he deteriorated. But I think, Matt Freese, I think for the meantime was a serviceable goalkeeper. Thing is, like at the end of the day, goalkeepers are being always compared to if you can play with your feet, and let's be honest, not a lot of goalkeepers can.
Not a lot of American goalkeepers, especially. And this is something I can tell you from experience because that was my position playing. American goalkeepers aren't soccer players naturally. They're taken over from football. They're taken from baseball. Usually third baseman, shortstops from baseball or from football. They're guys that are good with their hands. So they're good at stopping the ball. They're good at diving. They're good at stopping the ball. But as far as playing with their feet, it is a lost art to teach them. It's why
I do have a player though. I do have a player to keep an eye on. That's American. That's a goalkeeper. But there's this one, and as a matter of fact, he was used for the U.S. to be as a practice goalkeeper, by the way. So I'm not making this up. But keep an eye on for Brentford keeper Julian Eystone. He's an FC Dallas product. He actually went to Duke for one season, left Duke, because then he had his opportunity with Brentford. So
there's also Gaga Slininia, but
I don't consider him. But Julian Eystone, look at him. As a matter of fact, in the team prayer huddle, everybody was wondering who was that behemoth that was standing next to Matt Freese. That's Julian Eystone. So.
And to be fair to Matt Freese, like he had a really good tournament up to that point. He had a couple like spotty moments, and that's to be expected for a guy who's played professional soccer for what, 3 years? Like he has played high level soccer for less than a decade. And so to keep that in mind is like, all right, well, I guess we can give you the benefit of the doubt. Like you won the position, you did what you could, and when considering his level, he's
man. I know people are going to wonder whether or not Pochettino comes back or not. I know he's like right now just resting right now before he gets to contract discussions, whether he goes back to the club level or he goes back, or he maybe tries to do the cycle with the U.S. men's national team. But you know what? Say what you want about him, but he put out the guys that he felt deserved their opportunities.
Yeah.
I think everyone thought Johnny Cardozo would be the guy for him, right? Right, because Atletico Madrid player, all those things. He stuck with Tyler Adams. Yeah. Like he's not going to just put anybody out there if he feels they're worthy of the position. And that's what he did when he saw Matt Freese. He didn't feel confident with Matt Turner. He saw Matt Freese can do it. And while everyone had question marks behind him being the goalkeeper for the Gold Cup, he lived up to the building. Maybe not against Mexico, but he lived up to the building when he was given the number 1 shirt. Maybe not actually the number 1 shirt, but you know what I mean. But like at the end of the day, like, this is what Poch does. He's going to make sure he finds the players that best suit him. Unfortunately, Diego Luna wasn't part of his plans for this World Cup, but you saw the guys that he believed in. He puts him way on the bench so he can have Malik Tillman.
Yeah.
So I will say Pochettino, I think for what little time that he got with his national team, I think he made it count. I think that I understand why there's going to be a lot of clubs that are going to look out for him, because I think he did a phenomenal job with his U.S. men's national team. Is he going to stay with the U.S.? I don't know. I highly doubt it. But it's going to be really important if they have to find the right coach that's going to be here for all 4 years of this cycle.
For sure. Nick, final thoughts on the USA before we move on?
I agree with Hector. As much as I would love Pochettino to stay on, I just think he's gonna, with all due respect to the USA coaching job, he's got a little bit more bigger aspirations, and I think his stock rose because of this World Cup. And I think, the Premier League, they fire their managers every 20 minutes, so he'll be getting a Premier League call. And big clubs in general, not even just the Premier League, big clubs in general fire their coaches and managers every 20 seconds. So he's going to be right there to get a big club job in the next 6 months. And if he were to sign with the US, I think there would be this kind of like fear of like, oh my gosh, Tottenham just came open.
Yeah.
Oh no, is he going to leave? Oh my gosh, this club came open. Is he going to? So yeah.
No, that's for sure. We'll see if he sticks around. We are going to move on to the quarterfinals, though, because I think we've beaten the dead horse that is the U.S. men's national team performance to further death. I don't know if you can beat it to death twice, but we've definitely come close. We're going to talk about the quarterfinals, the matchups in this round: France versus Morocco, which took place earlier today, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Spain versus Belgium, which takes place on Friday, July 10th. So when you're seeing this, that'll be today. Norway versus England, Saturday, July 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern time in Miami. And then the final match of the quarterfinals, Argentina versus Switzerland at 9 p.m. Eastern time in Kansas City on Saturday as well. So as I mentioned, the France-Morocco matchup has wrapped up. It was 2-0 to France. Mbappé scores his 8th goal. Dembele gets his 5th for the tournament. This is really interesting, though, because it does give Mbappé the current lead for the Golden Boot, now with 8 goals and his 3 assists, to Messi's 8 goals and 1 assist. Erling Haaland, 7 goals, no assists. Harry Kane in 4th place in this race, 6 goals, 1 assist. All 4 are still alive in the tournament. Obviously, Mbappé, France getting into the semifinals. Messi, Haaland, Kane still yet to play in the round or into the quarterfinals. So that is very interesting. Also in this game, Mbappé closes to within 1 goal of the total World Cup goals all-time race, and only behind Messi. And Mbappé now has 12 total goals in World Cup knockout round appearances, which is the most all-time. And Didier Deschamps is now extending his record further as the winningest manager of all time in World Cup history. Wild situations because of France. This was a really interesting one because it was a really good game through the half, and then it was like Morocco, the exhaustion hit them in the second half, and they couldn't keep up with the French press. And yes, I did make a coffee joke right there, but it is something that you look at. It was quick turnovers turning into Mbappé with magic, and then Dembele making quick decisions with the ball at his foot, getting I won't say a kind bounce, but it was a kind bounce. Bono did what he could to deflect it, but obviously goes in the corner of the net. 2-0 France over Morocco. Incredible game. Now, we talked about the past. Now, the past is done. Let's talk about the future. Spain versus Belgium will be the first match we talk about here. And guys, we're going to do a little bit of a quick fire here. So give me 1 sentence and who's going to win. All right. Hector, let's start with you.
Spain's one of the better defensive teams. I think that they'll be able to keep Belgium quiet long enough to find their opportunities. Give me Spain.
Okay. Nick?
Belgium runs out of emotional gas and physical gas. Spain wins.
All right. I have nothing to add to any of those, so just Spain wins for me. So all 3 of us picking Spain in that one. Next game up, Norway versus England. Norway with a big win over Brazil to get here. England with a big emotional win with 10 men over Mexico in the 3-2 win. Will not have Jarell Quansah for this matchup, but they do seem to have a healthy team nonetheless. So, other than Jordan Henderson, who, if you didn't see afterwards in the celebrations, did break his arm falling over the barrier. Wish him all the best. Now, again, Nick, let's go with you. 1 sentence, and who's your pick?
Jude Bellingham is the biggest difference maker in this tournament. England wins.
Okay. Hector?
Erling Haaland is the biggest difference maker in this tournament. Norway wins.
Yeah, I'm going to double that up. I've called him the striking Viking and everything else. He is the biggest, strongest, fastest striker in this tournament. Erling Haaland and Norway
Also,
win
apparently has a lot of double gangers here in the U.S.
Dude, it's crazy. It's like 20 plus. So Hector and I are both going Norway. Nick, you're going with England. Also, let's not forget Channing Tatum is one of his doppelgangers. And then that'll take us to our last.
Also, a girl on TikTok.
Dude, she's over 1 million followers after that game. It's crazy. Absolute crazy stuff. There's a whole report on what just being a doppelganger means to somebody in that kind of world. It's a wild thing. A final game for the quarterfinals, Argentina versus Switzerland, 9 p.m. In Kansas City on Saturday night. Hector, start off this one.
You know what? It's crazy that it is in Kansas City, where this is the host site for Argentina, by the way. The FIFA plot thickens, if you get what I mean. But I mean, this Argentina team, maybe not the best Argentina team, but still getting the job done. And I don't know, maybe FIFA does what FIFA does best and make sure that Messi gets another. Oh, Argentina, by the Argentina.
Argentina, yeah. Our graphics person needs some work in their life.
Yeah, I'm Switzerland. They're structured. I love everything about them. But yeah, give me Argentina. Moving on.
All right, Nick.
Without Johan Manzambi for Switzerland, they lack the firepower to beat Argentina. Give me Argentina.
Yeah. Honestly, if this was any other team Argentina is facing, I would be worried about that emotional dissipation after that big win over Egypt for Argentina. But it's Switzerland, and I'm sorry, this is the team that I feel like is just happy to be here. And yeah, Argentina over Switzerland as well. So all three of us going Argentina. So really the only big difference for us, Norway versus England, which is kind of no surprise. We talked about that game, is kind of Norway being the underdogs, England being a question mark at times. Very interesting though. So guys, that's going to put us at a wrap for this episode. We kind of went with speed round there for all of our picks. Doesn't mean that we're going to speed through the rest of it, but be sure to stay tuned for more as we get closer to the end of the tournament. Obviously, semifinals come up next week. There will be a day break. Thank you. Between the quarterfinals and the semifinals, which is fantastic for us. But that is going to do it, obviously, for this episode of the Belly Up Sports Summer of Soccer. Before we leave, Hector, where can everybody find you?
Everything social media at Insert Name FC. If you guys want my personal channel where I'm bashing Dave Portnoy, you can go ahead and find me at Nino Flores 15.
There you go. Nick, where's everybody else going to find you?
You can find me on at Nick Gable 37 on Twitter X. I will not be on Twitter. Usually when I have a team, one of my favorite teams loses, US men's national team, I take a week off Twitter. So I'm currently in my week-long break of Twitter.
Okay. All right.
Good call.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. All right. And then you can find me over at the High Low Sports Podcast at High Low Sports on every social except for X, because they have to be difficult, at high_low_sports on X. Also, shout out to Mygo Still, who is helping us out through this entire series with special codes for you guys to check out. High Low Sports 5 for 5% off at WCupJ if you want to support me, or if you want to support Hector. This one is going to be Insert Name FC Pod C5 for 5% off at WCupJ.com. I don't know if you want to support Hector or not. He did just bash the USA a whole lot. So I don't know if you want to do that. But guys, I appreciate it as always for you guys tuning in. Hector, I couldn't just let you get scot-free on that one. I had to give some reason for somebody to vote for me.
Sorry, what are we doing? What are we doing?
It's a competition, man. It's a competition. That Cape Verde jersey is looking pretty nice right now. But guys, all right, so that'll do it for us today. Be sure to check out Belly Up Sports for more as we go through this tournament. There's always content coming out there, whether it be from us or from anybody else across all different sports. We provide daily sports content. We are the voice of the fans, so be sure to check that out year-round for coverage on every major sport in America. As Hector mentioned, football's coming up. That will be the turn after the World Cup will be to football. And then be sure to check out Belly Up Fantasy and Gaming on X for some bets that myself, as well as DJ, will be looking up throughout the rest of the tournament. And then as we continue through the rest of the season, be sure to see some other Belly Up personalities that pop up on there. You can find that page at Belly Up Fantasy on X. Guys, we appreciate you all for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.